Welcome back to HQ, presented by Geico. Who would have thought the Houston Texans would turn things around with a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback? D'Amico Ryans and C.J. Stroud leading the team to a division title and a magical playoff run that, of course, ended at the hands of the Ravens. But this season, maybe a little bit more competition in a division that we haven't really relied on competition for in a long time. And we look at the over-under in terms of win totals. The Texans right there at the top at 9.5, followed by the Jags at 8.5, with the Colts also 8.5, and then the Titans rounding things out at 6.5. Welcome you back in studio. Haley Sutton and Jenny Dell alongside our NFL guys, Brady Quinn and Douzable. Guys, when we talk about the Houston Texans, this was a team that really surprised a lot of people on offense and defense. When we get into the schedule here, the obvious game that jumps out to me, of course, is that Week 5 games, Texans-Bills, happening on CBS. We know the history that Diggs has with the Bills. It'll also be Josh Allen and C.J. Stroud's first time matching up there. So that one excites me. Week 7 also coming on CBS, Texans-Packers, where we'll see the next generation of QBs squaring off. They'll also play on Christmas Day. Brady, looking at the Texans here with that 9.5 number, which side are you on?
I'm on the over, and I'm actually a little bit concerned because that number looks really low to me. So someone knows something. Because looking at what this team did last year, and despite the fact that they missed Tank Dell for a period of time, they're a young team. C.J. Stroud is the real deal. He lit the entire league on fire, and they only got better this offseason. They'll get back Tank Dell. They bring in Stephon Diggs. They bring in Joe Mixon to the backfield. You know, they add pieces on defense. So I just look at this team, and I'm like, you know, you talked about that match versus the Bills. I look at a Week 16, Week 17, because I look at KC and Baltimore, Leger, as two of the other teams that can compete for the actual AFC conference. Correct. I think Houston's right there. I think C.J. Stroud proved that in his rookie year. So I've got them going 11-6. I honestly kept going back through this schedule and thinking to myself, I had it at times at 12-5, and I kept thinking, like, are they really going to go that high? Because this division should be better. Yep. But this is a team that I've got going 11-6. They're going to be winning the division. They're going to be one of the top teams in the AFC, and I think can wreak some havoc when they get in the playoffs.
Yeah, Brady, I think the number is so low because of strength of schedule by that, you know, metrics or wherever you want to put it.
That's
they have the fourth hardest. They have the fourth
based on last year's win-loss.
Exactly. You know how I feel about that. It's all about last year's win-loss rate, but they have the fourth hardest schedule in the NFL. And when you look at it, those games that you talked about in Week 15 through 17, Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens, I think that'll tell the tale whether they win upwards to 12 or 13 games, like you said, or I have them going 10-7 just because their schedule is that hard. We talked about the AFC South. For the longest, that was the laughing stock of the NFL when it comes to divisional football, but it will be significantly better. Nobody saw the Houston Texans coming. Now, Brady, it's all about, can they meet those expectations? You talked about them bringing in Stephon Diggs, and one thing I want to talk about, Bobby Slowick. It'll be his job to make sure everybody gets fed on that offense, because you know, when receivers don't get the ball, they get a little ornery, right? So you got Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins.
As much as they throw, they'll be fine.
Yeah,
I don't worry about that.
Ball, so like C.J. Stroud, I love his mentality. I think he'll make sure everybody gets the ball. But on the defensive side, they got extremely better, even though they played really well last year. Azeez Al-Shaair bringing in Danico Autry, Danielle Hunter coming back home to Houston. I mean, this front is going to get after people. So I do like them going over. I think the number is only 9.5 just because of their out-of-conference games. We kind of talked about it, the Dolphins, the Jets, the Bills. They have the Chiefs and the Ravens. Those are going to be tough games. Yep.
Both agreeing on the over there. We're going to look at the Jags next, and poor Pete Prisco. Last year they were on pace to win the AFC South, and then everything just
picked them to win the Super Bowl.
He picked them to go to the Super Bowl
every year.
But that's Prisco. Looking at their schedule, they get to go to London again for 2 straight games. That worked out for them last year. They'll be facing the Bears and the Pats out there, and this year the win total is set at 8.5. Brady, your thoughts?
I've got them going over, and that's, by the way, just for your count, 2 teams now going over the win-loss total. I'm Mr. Pessimistic.
I'm ready. Brady has entered the chat.
I didn't say pessimistic. I said a realist.
However you want to put it. But
okay.
Here's how I describe the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it all is determined based on how the start of the season goes. Man. And they got 3 of the 4 on the road. That's going to be a difficult task for them. I think this is a team that could probably get up to double-digit wins, but probably I could see them at 8, 9, 7, and 10 as well. there's been a lot of pressure, too. Press Taylor calling plays. There's Doug Peterson, who is it?
Back and forth.
And it becomes a year where everyone keeps thinking Trevor Lawrence is the guy. And if he is the guy, we need to see more out of him. The defense fell apart last year when they weren't getting turnovers. Look, they've made some improvements. They've shored up the offensive line. I think that group's going to be better. But this is a team that I think has a ton to prove. I've got them at 9-8. I don't think they're on par with where the Houston Texans are going to be this season.
Yeah, Brady, I have them going under. I have them going 8-9. So I know the last segment I had everybody going over, but I got the Jacksonville Jaguars going under. And it's what you talked about. The first 4 weeks of the season, Brady, they literally could be 0-4 when you look at the teams that they have to play. At the Dolphins, Browns at home, who are a playoff team, then at the Bills, at the Texans. If they go 0-4, there's only been one team, the 92 Chargers, that went 0-4 and went to the playoffs. So that's when I look at the schedule. They can start 1-3, 0-4. That would put them behind the 8 ball in regards to chasing down the Houston Texans to win that division. And then you talked about some of the changes. They changed their defensive coordinator. They struggled last year on that side of the ball. Ryan Nielsen. Also add a guy like Eric Armstead, who has been to multiple Super Bowls with the San Francisco 49ers. I think they will be better on defense, but it all comes down to Trevor Lawrence. Last year, he had an opportunity to put the Jacksonville Jaguars in the playoffs. In the last 4 games of the season, 10 turnovers. You cannot play that type of football and win games. And to your point, Brady, people have wondered, is he the guy? Is he not the guy? Is he the next coming? Well, this is a do-or-die year for me, for Trevor Lawrence, to prove that he's the guy for Jacksonville.
If we look at the Indianapolis Colts, they, of course, finished 3rd in the division last year. They were dealt a big hand of adversity early on when they lost their rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson, not once but twice. He had the concussion and then eventually shut down with the shoulder injury. When you look at the schedule for the Colts here, it doesn't get easier because the NFL decided to deal them one of the latest buys of the season. They don't get a break, guys, until week 14. They only get one primetime game this year, but they do open the season against C.J. Stroud and the Texans. So, Brady, coming into this season, there's a lot of hope, a lot of optimism, if that's the word of our show today, surrounding Anthony Richardson's return. But when you look at the schedule here, how much is he set up for success to help this program, to both of your points, sort of help the AFC South get back to prominence?
Yeah, I think last year, if it gave us any indication of what this team can be, was Shane Steichen, a first-year head coach who largely dealt without his first-round pick at quarterback, with Gardner Minshew leading them. And they were playing competitive games. They still had a shot at the end of the season to make the playoffs. Yeah. I mean, that's more than I think any Colts fan or Jim Irsay, their owner, could ask for, given the circumstances. So this season really hinges on the ability for Anthony Richardson to stay healthy, and what this offense looks like, too, in particular in the passing game, as he was more, I would say, of a raw player. Didn't start a ton of games at Florida before he came out, but we saw what he's capable of. And when you add A.D. Mitchell to go along with Josh Downs and Pittman as well, like, they've got some weapons now, and he's very, very much capable, I think, of lighting things up on fire. So can this team be what we saw last year when they were without him, and can they all step up out around him? I think they can, but it's a tough schedule. You talked about the late bye. You know, as a player, there's 2 things you look for. Your bye week, you'd rather have it in the middle of the season if you can. This is late, so I don't mind it quite as much. But the other thing is how many primetime games you got. When they only give you 1, the NFL's telling you they don't think you're going to be very good. So I've got them only winning 7 games, going under this number, this prediction, in this particular case.
Yeah, Brady, we were discussing this off camera. We thought that was a high number. Now, I think it's an overreaction to them winning so many games last year. I thought that was an amazing job by Shane Steichen, because I don't think anybody gave them a chance. A lot of people probably thought preseason they'd be picking in the top 5. Yeah. And like you said, week 18, they had a chance to beat the Houston Texans and host a playoff game. So, like, nobody had them in that scenario. And you would think because they've added pieces, they would be better. But when I look at their schedule, I think this team is only going to win 4 games. And I know that's tough to say, but when you look at weeks 10 through 12, right, Bills, at Jets, Lions, that's going to be a really tough stretch for them. And like you said, it all comes down as an incumbent on Anthony Richardson. Can he stay healthy? Because it did bring in Joe Flacco, and we saw some magic from him last year, but I don't think this team, when you look at it, there's still some deficiencies at left tackle and corner. There's still a lot of question marks. I don't think they get the 8.5.
We went from 100 to 0 on the optimism scale.
Lachey being more of a realist than I then. I'm in this case, so.
That's fine. We're going to talk about the Titans next under new rookie head coach Brian Callahan. 0 favors from the schedule makers there. They open up the season on the road in Chicago, then host the Jets and then the Packers before heading to Miami for week 4 on Monday Night Football. Tennessee, I mean, they could come out of that first month 0-4 potentially. Yeah,
potentially. And look, your first-year head coach, first-time head coach, Brian Callahan, he brings his dad to help out the offensive line, which was woeful last year.
Yeah.
So that's one of the strong points. But Will Levis, have we bought into Will Levis as a quarterback? Their defense had issues as well. The bye comes early. You hate that. You'd rather at least be in the middle or more on the back end. So difficult start, and I think it's going to be a difficult finish too for this team. I've only got them winning 5 games, going under that number.
Yeah, I have them going under. I have them going 6-11, right under the 6.5. JD, you talked about it. The first 4 games, I look at them like Jacksonville. They could potentially go 0-4. And I talked about the stat already. Only one team has gone on 0-4 and made the playoffs. Now, they've made some big splashes in the offseason, right? Tyler Boyd. They also get Calvin Ridley. They bring in Tony Pollard. I just think Will Levis be the guy for them, right? I love what they did bringing in Brian Callahan and then his dad, Bill Callahan, to fix up that offensive line, which was their Achilles heel last year. I just think the division is better in every other spot. I think the Tennessee Titans will struggle this year.
We're talking about, real quick, the primetime games, how players look at the schedule. There's only one team that has 0 primetime games. That is the Carolina Panthers.
That's tough.
Guys, thanks so much for hopping on HQ with us to break down the schedule. Producer James not happy with that stat as he is a Panthers fan, but
love you, James.
Only up from here. That's my phrase of the day, guys. Thanks so much. Here's a look at the odds to win the AFC South this year. It is the Texans on top at +105, followed by the Jags, Colts, Titans. So Vegas thinking that this is going to play out the same way it played out last season.